100 days and a little over 5,000 miles with the new Model 3 Performance. These are my honest thoughts and what it's like to live with the best-selling electric sedan. First, I put my order in pretty much the second Tesla made it available to configure and order. That was back in April, and then I took delivery at the start of June, so roughly about 45 days waiting. And ever since then, it has been my daily weekend. I do not drive any other car besides this. And secondly, this is my third Tesla and year 4 of driving an EV pretty much exclusively. So this will be from more of a long-term perspective. So let's just go ahead and dive right into the deep end, range and charging. The most popular topic when buying an EV for the first time. As for charging, I charge at home. I never use public charging unless I'm on a road trip. I have a NEMA 1450, otherwise known as a stove plug with a Gen 2 mobile connector. This plug cost me roughly $250 to get installed, about a foot away from my breaker. The older mobile connector could do 40 amps, but the new one can only do 32, which is still plenty for me and honestly plenty for most people. With this setup and the newer Gen 2 mobile connector that is slightly slower, I'm still getting 7 to 8 kilowatts or 30-ish miles per hour. So roughly about 7 to 8 hours to go from 0 to 80%, which I'm never doing as I'm normally in that 40 to 80 range. So I get home with like 40% and then I charge back up to 80%, but I can charge from 0 to 80% if I need to, pretty much overnight. As for range, well, I am not a range person. The first Tesla I bought was a long range because, well, new EV owner range anxiety, but after about 6 months, I realized that I didn't drive 350 miles in a day and I wanted more performance. Tesla estimates this car will get about 303 miles. It doesn't. I actually did a test where I drove like I normally do with my aero covers off of the warp wheels because, well, that's how I just like to run them. And from 0 to 2%, got around 230 miles. The average commute in the US is roughly 40 miles, which is actually around what my commute is, give or take a little bit. So I'm never coming close to not having enough to just do my daily stuff that I need to do. As for the winter, I don't drive as spiritedly just because, but the cold does decrease range. I am expecting, based off of my last few Teslas that I've owned, for my real world range to be around 200 miles. Yeah, charging is honestly one of my favorite parts about EV ownership as a whole. Like just having essentially a gas station at your house, never having to think about it, is actually so nice. The lesser range of the performance doesn't bother me, and if I had to redo my purchase again, even now with the better charging long range battery pack and the rear wheel drive long range, I would still 100% get the performance. And well, that's because of everything the performance has to offer, which is the next part, the performance stuff, which for the new Model 3 is not just a slightly faster 0 to 60. They actually changed other things about it. First up, the exterior. I personally think the normal Refresh 3 looks very bland from the front, but the performance added a lip with air slits, and it just looks a whole lot better in my opinion. The rear also has wider tires, a spoiler, and a diffuser for just a more meaty, aggressive look when paired with the fact that it's also lower than the normal 3. The wheels, while this may be a little controversial, I'm not a fan of. I think the warp wheels are the worst looking performance wheels. I think the original turbines were the best, and then the Uber turbines, yeah, I'm not a fan of these wheels. I did take the arrows off to try to make them look better. I think that does help a little bit. But yeah, not a fan. However, they are the most functional out of any wheel that's been offered for the Performance 3 from Tesla, as they are forged, which means that they are pretty lightweight. I believe Unplugged Performance weighed them next to their like dedicated super lightweight track wheels, and with all the arrows off, they were only like an extra pound. As for the interior, you get carbon fiber on the dash along with the new sport bucket seats. The carbon fiber is kind of whatever in my opinion. This isn't like the old 3 where the trim just made up a whole lot more of the dash dash. I don't even really notice the carbon fiber is in the new one. It's just a super small piece. But the sport bucket seats are very, very noticeable. I really, really am a huge fan of these. They're still not as good at keeping you in place as like a real dedicated bucket seat, but they are a very good, like, you know, they're not, most people probably, even if you're buying performance, you're probably not actually taking it to the track. You may just take your local sharp turn a little bit faster, and it's like, oh wow, it keeps me in my seat a little bit more than the old one does. I would say happy medium, but on the scale of like actual bucket seat, not a bucket seat, yeah, I wouldn't put it in the middle. I'd put it like halfway between the middle and the not bucket seat. Which, I mean, considering the fact that the seats don't lose any functionality, like, so they're still ventilated, they're still heated, I'm not really faulting it for that. As for actual performance, the 0 to 60 is slightly better than the old 3. You can't really feel it, if I'm being entirely honest. Like, I personally cannot feel it. I launched my old 3 hundreds of times, but the 60 to 100, you can 100% feel the difference. And it is a pretty, I wouldn't say huge difference, right? It's not like going from like Raven Model S to Plaid where it's just like, oh my God, this is so much faster. It's just like a nice little, okay, the car doesn't feel super slow anymore. And lastly, for the like performance differences, we got the suspension. It's got a new adaptive suspension where you can swap between standard and sport. I never take it out of standard personally, as I think standard just feels so much better, so much more comfortable. In fact, I think that standard feels better than the non-performances new, like, better riding suspension that they added when they refreshed the 3. If you are looking for that more sportier suspension, feeling more of the road, going to the sport setting does bring back a lot of that, you know, road feel. All in all, I feel that the performance is the ultimate 3. It's like peak 3. You're getting all the speed that the 3 has to offer. You're getting the fancy seats. You're getting the adaptive suspension. It's great. I'm a big fan of all the performance changes. Driving this car as a do-it-all car has been fantastic. It's comfortable, quick, has good storage space. I made an entire video going over why this car was and is the ultimate daily, so I'll try not to repeat myself too much here. It's very hard to describe what it feels like to drive a Tesla, like just how smooth it is. When they tell you that you're paying for the drivetrain and battery, they really do mean it. Like, the pedal response and regen calibration is so good. If you've never driven a Tesla, I cannot explain it to you. You just got to go drive one. Now, in terms of build quality, it's pretty good. It's definitely better than previous 3s. And, well, like I just said, you're really paying for the drivetrain and battery, not so much like luxury. Interior for me has been super solid and just feels so much better compared to my previous 3. Not only is stuff just tighter and just more well put together, but the materials used just feel a lot better. I've had 0 rattles so far, and I'm hoping that that continues going into the winter. Like, the winter and when it gets cold will be the real test. Now, I mentioned material improvements, and some of those include things like the door cubbies now being lined with felt. This was something that was standard on the Y, but not the 3. Also, just like the entirety of the door cubby itself is now like a soft touch. If you look at the B pillar from the outside, that's been completely updated with a much more like soft touch foam to it. The dash is like this nice leather, fake leather. I actually don't know what it is. It's not real leather. But it feels a lot better than the just massive piece of hard plastic that was the old 3. Now, as for road noise, I still stand by my statement of if you're coming from a 3 with double paned front glass, so I believe 2021 and up, road noise isn't a crazy improvement. But if you're coming from a like black trim 3, so if you got like silver trim, it's a night and day difference. I recently had a Loner 3 that was a 2019, and my God, that thing was a rattle box with wind noises so loud, I kept thinking that the window was slightly open. If it wasn't for the fantastic sound system that the 3 has always had, I would have honestly probably tore my ears off. Like, it was that bad. As for the exterior, it's pretty much the same story in terms of fit and finish. Everything is just tighter than the previous 3. As you all know, I did have some QC problems with the exterior and the interior for mine, but we'll talk about that when we get to QC and if Tesla was able to fix that or not. Autopilot and full self-driving. While not a this car specific only thing, is something I really have to applaud. Ever since I got this car in June, FSD or full self-driving got its big makeover, so it's a lot better now. We've got the new auto park, and as of just recently, Summon has finally returned, and it's better than ever. And while all that is great, and you know, it's good that they're improving on it, for me, the big one is hands-free. Hands-free in the attention monitoring has made autopilot on the interstate or full self-driving just on city streets 10 times more enjoyable. The fact that I don't have to apply pressure to the wheel and the nag is gone. Oh, it's so nice. I love the hands-free monitoring, and the improvement of, you know, all their full self-driving stuff is a big plus too. Okay, so now for the QC, and talking QC problems about Tesla is honestly kind of a roller coaster, but I'm gonna do it anyway. I'm happy to report that actually as of 2 days ago now, Tesla has fixed everything I complained about in a video I made a few months back on everything that was wrong with my new Performance 3. The trim pieces and tail light alignment, front underneath hanging down, the squeaky armrest, and the mark on my dash. While they were swapping the dash for the mark, they also noticed other damage from the factory, and they got that fixed too. They even fixed some of my lights being dim in certain places. I've talked about this in past videos, which I didn't even ask for, but I think that was something that they just changed because they were having to swap the dash anyway, so I don't think they meant to do it, but nonetheless, they did it. The only thing that wasn't fixed was the little bent piece next to my trunk arm. They were willing to fix it though. I would just need to send it to a body shop, and I just did not want to send my car to a body shop for God knows how long, and yeah, just not something I wanted to do. So I said, hey, do not worry about it. Plus, I was putting off putting PPF on until that got fixed, and I didn't want to continue driving without PPF, so yeah, I just PPF'd over it, called it a day. As for my biggest problem, the turn signals, well, as you all know, if you watched the video a few weeks back, that's not a problem. That's just kind of how they're designed, and I've since been able to stop getting them stuck, like stop having them getting stuck. They've essentially just stopped getting stuck because I actually know how to use them now. If you're having problems with your turn signals getting stuck, go watch that video. But yeah, all my QC issues were fixed, and the team in Louisville is great. As for general complaints or just, you know, I wish this was different, it's pretty much only one thing, and you all already know what it is: the headliner. I hate this color and am dumbfounded that Tesla didn't update it to at least a darker color, if not Alcantara, when they did the refresh. And it may sound kind of like, why do you care? But if you've never been in an S or an X or even a Cybertruck and just seen how much better that this car and in extension the Y could look if it had the darker headliner, it's just, I hate the headliner so much. And the worst part is that it's not just ugly, right? It's also extremely easy to get dirty. But besides my hatred for the headliner and the wheels not being my favorite, there's nothing really else to complain about that couldn't be added via software. Like, I hope we eventually get actual auto shift, or I think it's auto shift 2.0, whatever it might be. Right now, it can only auto shift out of park, but for example, the S and X have actual auto shift that can do a whole lot more. Maybe a launch mode, so people stop putting the car in track mode for drag strip videos. But besides that, I can't really think of anything else. But yeah, those are my thoughts now after about 4 months with this car. There are definitely things that I'm forgetting about that I'm probably just super used to, and they aren't coming to mind while I'm making this video. But you can feel free to drop questions or concerns down below. I'm sure either I or someone else will get back to you. For people wondering whether or not I think the car has been worth it, yes, 100%. I do plan to keep this car for the foreseeable future, or at least until next summer, but well, I don't want to get too far ahead of myself. I do have some new Tesla stuff planned here on the channel. And if you are new around here and want to see more Tesla related stuff in your YouTube feed, then feel free to subscribe. I'll see you all in the next one. Peace.